I'm Avery Mitchell, 32, and I built my life from scratch after my parents drained my college fund to bail out my brother Justin. After years of hard work, I finally owned my downtown Boston apartment, a symbol of my independence. Then one Sunday morning, my doorbell rang unexpectedly. Standing there were my parents, my father's face set with determination, my mother nervously fidgeting behind him. What they demanded next shattered any illusion that the past was behind us. If you're enjoying this story, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I'd love to know where you're watching from, so drop a comment below while I tell you how my parents' demand changed everything. My apartment isn't massive or luxurious by any standards, but it's mine. Every inch of the 800 square feet represents countless overtime hours, careful budgeting, and years of sacrifice. The hardwood floors, I refinished myself during weekends. The kitchen cabinets, I painted during late nights after 12-hour workdays. Every piece of furniture carefully selected from thrift stores and gradually replaced as my salary increased. Growing up, the dynamic in our family was crystal clear. Justin was the golden child who could do no wrong, while I was expected to be the responsible one who never caused trouble. When he crashed the family car at 16, my parents comforted him. When I asked for help with college applications, I was told to figure it out myself because I was the smart one. The pattern continued throughout our childhood. Justin's soccer games were family events, while my academic competitions were barely acknowledged. His bedroom walls were covered with participation trophies, while my academic achievements gathered dust in a box under my bed. It wasn't that my parents didn't love me, they just always had different expectations. Everything came to a head when I was 17. I had been accepted to Northeastern University with a partial scholarship, but still needed my college fund to cover the remainder. I'd spent years planning for this moment, maintaining perfect grades while working part-time jobs to save additional money. Then one evening, my parents sat me down at our kitchen table. The memory is still vivid. The yellow overhead light, the faded floral tablecloth, and their uncomfortable expressions. "Avery, something's happened with Justin," my mother Karen began, her fingers nervously twisting her wedding ring. My father Robert cut to the chase. "Your brother got involved with some gambling. He owes dangerous people a lot of money." "How much?" I asked, already sensing where this conversation was heading. $30,000, my father replied, unable to meet my eyes. The amount matched almost exactly what sat in my college fund, money my grandparents had started for me, supplemented by my parents over the years. "We need to use your college fund," my mother said softly. "Just temporarily. We'll pay it back before you start school in the fall." Despite the sinking feeling in my stomach, I nodded. Family comes first, they always taught me. Justin was in trouble, but the money was never repaid. That fall, instead of moving into a dorm room, I rented a tiny room in a house with 5 other students. I worked 2 jobs, waiting tables at a diner in the mornings and bartending at night, while carrying a full course load. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. Each semester was a financial tightrope walk. I applied for every scholarship, took on extra shifts, ate ramen for weeks straight, and sometimes chose between textbooks and groceries. Meanwhile, Justin dropped out of community college and lived at home, working occasional odd jobs between extended periods of unemployment. After graduation, I landed an entry-level position at a financial consulting firm. The irony wasn't lost on me, advising others on financial security when my own had been so precarious. But I excelled, partly because I understood firsthand the consequences of poor financial decisions. I lived with 4 roommates in a cramped apartment for 3 years, saving every penny possible. When I finally qualified for a mortgage on my modest 1-bedroom apartment 5 years ago, I cried upon receiving the keys, the first tangible proof that my hard work was paying off. Over the years, my relationship with my family became cordial but distant. Holiday visits, occasional phone calls, but always with clear boundaries. Justin continued his cycle of jobs and debts, with my parents always stepping in to rescue him. 3 months ago, I received a long-awaited promotion to senior consultant. After years of proving myself, I finally felt secure. My emergency fund was solid, my retirement accounts growing steadily, and I'd even started planning a vacation, my first in 5 years. Life was finally stable, predictable, and entirely on my terms. Or so I thought, until that fateful Sunday morning when my doorbell rang. The doorbell's chime cut through my peaceful Sunday morning routine. Coffee in hand, hair still damp from the shower. I wasn't expecting anyone. Through the peephole, I saw my parents standing in the hallway, my father shifting impatiently from foot to foot. When I opened the door, the tension was immediately palpable. "Surprise visit," I said, forcing a smile.
Come in.
My mother, Karen, hugged me tightly, her perfume, the same floral scent she'd worn my entire life, momentarily transporting me back to childhood. My father, Robert, gave a stiff nod, his eyes already scanning my apartment. "Nice place you've got here," he commented, but something in his tone felt off, almost resentful. "Coffee," I offered, trying to ease the awkwardness. "We don't have time for coffee," my father replied sharply. My mother shot him a look. "What Robert means is that we have a lot to discuss." We settled in my small living room, my parents on the sofa, while I took the armchair across from them. My mother's hands twisted nervously in her lap, a familiar signal that bad news was coming. My father sat forward, elbows on knees, his jaw set in determination. "How have you been, Avery?" my mother asked. "The apartment looks lovely." "Thank you. I've been good. Just got a promotion, actually." "That's wonderful, honey," she smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Enough small talk," my father interrupted. "We need to discuss Justin." The mention of my brother's name sent a chill through me. Years of experience had taught me that conversations starting this way never ended well. "What about him?" I asked cautiously. My father cleared his throat. "Your brother is in trouble. Serious trouble." "What kind of trouble?" Though I already knew the answer. My mother jumped in. "He got involved with some investments. A business opportunity that seemed promising." "Gambling," my father clarified, his voice tight with frustration. "Started with investment schemes, ended up at casinos trying to win it back." The familiar story unfolded. Justin had convinced some friends to invest in a business venture, something involving cryptocurrency that my parents didn't fully understand. When the venture failed, he tried gambling to recoup the losses, spiraling deeper into debt. "How much?" I asked, the same question I'd asked at 17. $150,000, my father answered. I nearly choked.
$.
My mother nodded miserably. "Some of the people he borrowed from, they're not nice people, Avery. They're threatening legal action," my father added. "And worse." "Where's Justin now?" "Staying at our place," my mother replied. "He's too afraid to go to his apartment." My father leaned forward. "We've done everything we can. We emptied our savings, even took a second mortgage on the house. But it's not enough," my mother continued. "And we're too old to qualify for more loans." The sinking feeling in my stomach intensified. I already knew what was coming, but part of me still hoped I was wrong. "What exactly are you asking me?" I needed them to say it explicitly. My father's eyes locked onto mine. "We need you to sell your apartment." The words hung in the air, bold and outrageous. "Sell my apartment?" I repeated, certain I'd misheard. "It's the only way," my mother pleaded. "Justin could go to jail. Or worse." "You've got equity," my father continued, as if explaining a simple math problem. "Property values in this area have gone up. You'd make a profit, enough to cover Justin's debts." "And where exactly would I live?" I asked, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "You could rent for a while," my mother suggested. "Or move back home until you save up again." Move back home? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'm 32 years old with a career in Boston. I can't commute 3 hours each way from Hartford. "You'd figure something out," my father dismissed. "This is family we're talking about." "And what about Justin?" I asked. "What's his plan to pay me back?" My father waved his hand dismissively. "He'll get back on his feet. He always does." "Always does," I echoed incredulously. "When has he ever stood on his own 2 feet without you bailing him out?" Don't talk about your brother that way, my mother admonished. We're not asking, Avery. My father's voice hardened. It's family money anyway. Family money? The phrase hit me like a slap. I worked 3 jobs through college after you took my college fund for Justin's gambling debts. I worked 60-hour weeks for years to save for this place. How exactly is this family money? We raised you, my father countered, his face reddening. We put a roof over your head, food on the table. You wouldn't have anything without us. The sheer audacity of his statement left me momentarily speechless. The anger and betrayal I thought I'd processed years ago came rushing back with renewed intensity. I think you should leave, I said quietly, fighting to maintain my composure. We're not leaving until this is settled, my father insisted. There's nothing to settle, I replied. I'm not selling my apartment. Not for Justin. Not for anyone. My mother began to cry, soft sniffles that gradually grew into sobs. It was a familiar tactic, one that had worked countless times when I was younger. Do you want your brother to end up dead? She asked between sobs. Is that what you want? The emotional manipulation was so transparent, yet still effective. Doubt crept in. Was I being selfish? Was property more important than my brother's safety? But another voice in my head, the one that had guided me through years of self-reliance, reminded me that this wasn't about the apartment. This was about an endless cycle that would continue as long as I allowed it. I'll think about it, I finally said, just to end the conversation. I need time. My father stood, taking my words as capitulation. We'll need an answer by the end of the week. Time isn't something Justin has a lot of right now. As I closed the door behind them, the weight of their expectations pressed down on me. The life I'd carefully built was once again at risk because of my brother's choices. The familiar feelings of resentment and guilt waged war inside me, but this time, something else was emerging: determination. 3 days after my parents' unexpected visit, my phone rang incessantly. Each call from them went unanswered as I tried to process my feelings and consider my options. On the 4th day, they showed up at my apartment again, this time unannounced. We need an answer, Avery, my father demanded as soon as I opened the door. I told you I needed time, I replied, reluctantly letting them in. Time isn't a luxury we have, he snapped. The people Justin owes aren't patient. My mother looked worse than before, dark circles under her eyes, her normally neat appearance disheveled. Please, Avery. We wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious. I understand it's serious, I said carefully. But selling my home is serious, too. It's just property, my father dismissed. Family is what matters. If family matters so much, why is this falling on me? Again, the question had been building inside me for days. What's that supposed to mean? My father's voice rose. It means I've been bailing Justin out my entire life. My college fund when I was 17. The loan I co-signed when I was 23 that tanked my credit score for years when he didn't pay. The $5,000 for his car repair last year that was never repaid. We helped you plenty over the years, my father countered, his version of history wildly different from reality. When? I challenged. Name one time you helped me financially after high school. We let you live at home that summer after freshman year, he offered weakly. For 3 weeks, while I worked 2 jobs saving for my sophomore year tuition, I corrected. We bought you groceries sometimes, my mother added. Once. You brought me a care package during finals my junior year. My father's face reddened. We didn't raise you to keep score in a family. It's not about keeping score. It's about acknowledging reality. I've been on my own financially since I was 17, while you've supported Justin through every crisis of his own making. Don't you care about your brother? My mother's voice broke. He could lose everything. What exactly would he lose, Mom? His apartment that you pay the rent on? His car that you co-signed for? His job that he can't keep for more than a few months at a time? That's unfair, she protested. Is it? When was the last time Justin held a job for more than 6 months? Neither of them answered. I'm not saying I don't care about Justin, I continued, my voice softening slightly. But selling my apartment won't solve the real problem. The real problem is your brother owes dangerous people money, my father insisted. No, the real problem is that Justin has never faced consequences for his actions. Every time he gets in trouble, you swoop in and fix it. That's what parents do. For children, maybe. Justin is 35 years old. My father paced the small living room, his frustration visible in every movement. I didn't come here for a lecture on parenting from someone who isn't a parent. The dismissal stung, but I pressed on. Remember when Justin totaled his second car? You bought him another one the next week. When I needed new brakes, you told me to figure it out myself. You've always been more capable, my mother said, as if it were a compliment. That's not capability, Mom. That's being forced to be self-sufficient while watching someone else get endless second chances. So, this is jealousy? My father stopped pacing to glare at me. You're punishing your brother because you're jealous? This isn't about jealousy. It's about enabling destructive behavior. Save the psychobabble, he snapped. Justin needs help now. He needed help years ago. Real help, not financial bailouts. My mother began crying harder. Please, Avery. We don't know where else to turn. I felt the familiar weight of their expectations and disappointment. For years, I'd carried the burden of being the responsible one, while simultaneously being made to feel selfish for setting boundaries. What happens after I sell my apartment and give Justin the money? I asked. Then what? He'll get back on his feet, my father insisted. Like he did after you used my college fund? Or after I co-signed his loan? Or after you remortgaged your house the first time? This time will be different, my mother assured me.
How?
I challenged. What's different now? Neither could answer. I worked 60-hour weeks for years to afford this place, I said quietly. I sacrificed vacations, new clothes, even proper meals sometimes. This apartment represents everything I've worked for. It's just a place to live, my father dismissed. To you, maybe. To me, it's proof that I can rely on myself. That all those sacrifices meant something. So your pride is worth more than your brother's life? My father's accusation hit hard. That's not fair, I protested. Life isn't fair, he shot back. Family means making sacrifices. I've been making sacrifices for this family my entire life. My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. When do I get to draw the line? When your brother isn't in danger, my mother pleaded. He's always in danger, Mom. That's the problem. There will always be another crisis, another debt, another reason why my needs come last. My father's patience finally snapped. Either you sell this apartment and help your brother, or you're not part of this family anymore. The ultimatum hung in the air between us, shocking in its cruelty, yet somehow unsurprising. It wasn't the first time my father had threatened to cut me off for refusing to enable Justin. Robert. My mother gasped, but she didn't contradict him. I felt something break inside me. The last thread of hope that my parents might someday see me as equal to my brother in their eyes. I think you should leave, I said quietly. We're not leaving until... Get out of my apartment, I interrupted, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside.
Now.
Something in my tone must have conveyed my seriousness. My father grabbed his jacket, my mother gathered her purse, and they left without another word. As the door closed behind them, I sank to the floor, shaking with emotion. For hours, I sat there, replaying the confrontation and countless others before it. The pattern was so clear, yet I'd been caught in it for so long that breaking free seemed impossible. But as the evening shadows stretched across my apartment floor, a new resolve began to form. This time would be different, not for Justin, but for me. After my parents left, I called the one person who had seen me through every family crisis since college, my best friend Zoe Sullivan. They did what? Zoe exclaimed after I explained the situation. Her outrage was comforting, a validation that I wasn't overreacting. They want me to sell my apartment to pay off Justin's gambling debts, I repeated, still hardly believing it myself. And your father actually said it was family money? The audacity of that man. He also threatened to cut me off from the family if I don't do it. Zoe snorted. What exactly would you be losing? The privilege of bailing out your brother every few years. Her bluntness made me laugh despite everything. When you put it that way. Seriously, Avery, this is insane. You worked your ass off for that apartment. You ate ramen for dinner 3 nights a week for 2 years to save for the down payment. 4 nights, I corrected. Wednesday was splurge night. I added an egg. We both laughed, but quickly sobered. What are you going to do? Zoe asked. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to tell them to go to hell. But then I think about Justin facing these loan sharks or going to jail. That's exactly what they want you to think. They're manipulating you with fear. But what if something really does happen to him? Zoe sighed. Avery, I love you, but you need to recognize the pattern here. Every few years, there's a crisis with Justin. Every time, it's life or death. Every time, you or your parents bail him out. And every time, nothing changes. Her words hit home. The pattern was undeniable. But if I don't help and something happens, that's not on you, Zoe said firmly. Justin is 35 years old. His choices are his responsibility. My parents don't see it that way. Your parents are part of the problem. They've been enabling him his entire life. We talked for hours, dissecting years of family dynamics. With each example we recalled, the pattern became clearer. Justin created crises, my parents panicked, I was expected to sacrifice, and the cycle repeated. I need to break the cycle, I finally said. Yes, you do. For your sake and, honestly, for Justin's too. After we hung up, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept returning to my father's claim about family money. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. Just how much had my family taken from me over the years? The next morning, I called Tiffany Reynolds, a financial advisor at my firm who had become a mentor. I need some professional advice, I told her. Personal, not client-related. Over lunch, I explained the situation. Tiffany listened without interrupting, her expression growing increasingly concerned. What would you advise a client in my situation? I asked when I finished. Honestly, I'd tell them to run far and fast from this financial entanglement, she replied. But family complicates things. That's the problem. Tiffany tapped her fork against her plate thoughtfully. Have you ever calculated exactly how much your family has taken from you over the years? Not exactly, no. Maybe you should. Put real numbers to it. Sometimes seeing the hard data makes the emotional decision clearer. That evening, I dug through old bank statements, tax returns, and financial records. I created a spreadsheet, methodically documenting every dollar my parents had taken or that I'd spent bailing out Justin. My college fund, $30,000. Interest that money would have earned over 15 years, approximately $22,000. The defaulted loan I co-signed, $12,000. The resulting credit score damage, approximately $8,000 in higher interest rates. Emergency money sent over various crises, at least $15,000. Career opportunities missed due to financial constraints, incalculable. When I finished, the total was staggering. Nearly $90,000, not counting inflation or lost opportunities. Almost enough for a down payment on a second property, or graduate school, or a significant investment portfolio. I printed the spreadsheet, double-checked the math, and placed it in a manila envelope. Then I did something I'd never done before. I drafted a formal letter to my parents outlining my terms. Not a blank check, not an emotional plea, but clear boundaries with specific conditions. For the first time in my life, I wasn't going to let guilt or manipulation drive my financial decisions. I was taking control of the narrative. The next day, I received a text from my mother. Justin is staying with us now. We need to meet. Please. I replied simply, I'll be home Saturday at 10 a.m. All 3 of you need to be there. For the rest of the week, I prepared. I met with a financial counselor who specialized in addiction issues. I researched gambling addiction recovery programs. I consulted with a lawyer about how to structure a formal loan agreement. When Saturday arrived, I felt calm and prepared. Whatever happened, I would no longer be a silent participant in the cycle of enabling that had defined our family for decades. As I waited for their arrival, I held the manila envelope containing 15 years of financial history. It represented not just money, but years of sacrifice, silent resentment, and unacknowledged inequity. The doorbell rang precisely at 10. This time, when I opened the door, Justin stood between my parents, looking simultaneously defiant and ashamed. The breaking point had arrived. But this time, I wasn't the one who would break. Justin looked terrible. His normally carefully maintained appearance had deteriorated. Unwashed hair, bloodshot eyes, clothes that hung loosely on his frame. He'd lost weight, and the confident swagger I'd resented for years was nowhere to be seen. "Come in," I said, stepping aside to allow all three of them into my apartment. My mother immediately tried to take control of the situation. "Avery, we've been worried sick. Why haven't you been answering our calls?" "I needed time to think," I replied evenly. "And to prepare." "Prepare what?" my father asked suspiciously. "We'll get to that." I gestured toward my small dining table where I'd set out coffee and water. "Let's sit down." We arranged ourselves around the table, an awkward family reunion. Justin avoided my eyes, staring instead at his hands. "Have you made a decision?" My father cut straight to the point. "We're running out of time." "I've been thinking about what you said about family money," I began carefully. My mother brightened. "So, you understand? We're just asking you to contribute your share, like we've always done for you." "Actually, I've been reflecting on exactly how much I've contributed to this family over the years." "This isn't the time for complaints," my father interrupted. "Your brother is in serious trouble." "I'm aware of that," I replied. "But before we discuss solutions, I think we need to address the pattern that got us here." "What pattern?" My father's tone was dismissive. "Your brother made some mistakes. People make mistakes." "They do," I agreed. "But most people learn from them. We haven't allowed Justin to learn from his." "That's not fair," my mother protested. For the first time, Justin spoke. "Just sell the damn apartment, Avery. You've always been so self-righteous about your precious independence. Meanwhile, I could end up in jail or worse." His accusation ignited something in me. Self-righteous? I worked 3 jobs to put myself through college after our parents gave my education fund to you. I lived in apartments with black mold because it was all I could afford while trying to repair the credit score that tanked when you defaulted on the loan I co-signed. I've spent 15 years cleaning up after your messes while you've spent 15 years creating new ones. "Avery," my mother gasped. "It's true," I insisted. "And we all know it. We just don't talk about it." "So now you're punishing me for ancient history?" Justin challenged. "This isn't about punishment. It's about breaking a cycle that isn't helping any of us, especially you, Justin." My father's patience wore thin. "Enough psychology. Are you selling this place or not?" "No," I said firmly. "I'm not." "Then why are we here?" he demanded, starting to rise from his chair. "Because I have an alternative proposition." I placed the manila envelope on the table. "But first, I want you all to see this." I slid the envelope toward my father. He opened it reluctantly and pulled out the spreadsheet I'd prepared. My mother leaned over to look, while Justin continued staring at his hands. "What's this?" my father asked, scanning the document. "An accounting of all the money that's gone from me to this family over the years. Primarily to Justin." My father's face flushed with anger. "You've been keeping score?" "No, I've been keeping records. There's a difference." My mother looked stricken as she read through the itemized list. "Surely it can't be this much." $90,473, I stated. "That's the conservative estimate, not counting inflation or opportunity costs." "This is ridiculous," my father blustered, but I could see the impact the number had on him. His face had paled considerably. "Is it?" I challenged. "Every dollar on that list is documented. Bank transfers, loan documents, credit reports. I have records of all of it." For the first time, Justin looked up from his hands to glance at the spreadsheet. His expression shifted from defiance to something resembling shame. "Why are you doing this?" my mother asked, tears forming in her eyes. "Because I want all of you to understand exactly what's at stake here. It's not just my apartment. It's 15 years of my financial security being sacrificed for Justin's poor choices." "So you're refusing to help," my father concluded, his voice hard. "Your brother could end up dead, and you're worried about your bank balance." I didn't say I wouldn't help. I corrected him. I said I wouldn't sell my apartment. This caught their attention. "What do you mean?" my mother asked cautiously. I pulled out a second envelope and placed it on the table. "These are my terms." "Terms?" My father practically spat the word. "We're family, not business associates." "That distinction hasn't stopped you from treating my finances like a family resource," I pointed out. "So, let's be clear about the arrangement this time." I opened the envelope and removed several documents. "I've consulted with financial advisors and lawyers. I'm willing to help Justin one last time, but only under these conditions." I laid out the first document. "This is information about a gambling addiction recovery program. Justin needs to enroll immediately and complete the full program." "I don't have a gambling addiction," Justin protested weakly. "You've lost over $150,000 gambling," I countered. "What would you call it?" He had no response. I placed the second document on the table. "This is a formal loan agreement. I will loan Justin enough to cover his most pressing debts, the ones that pose an immediate threat to his safety. In return, he will sign this contract agreeing to repay the loan with interest." "A contract? Between siblings?" My mother looked horrified. "Yes. With clear terms, payment schedules, and consequences for default." "This is absurd," my father declared. "You don't trust your own brother?" "History hasn't given me reason to," I replied simply. Justin flinched at my words, but remained silent. "The third condition," I continued, placing another document on the table, "is that Justin meets weekly with a financial counselor who specializes in addiction recovery. I've already found someone who can work with him." "And if I refuse?" Justin finally looked directly at me. "Then I won't help. It's that simple." My father stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "This is emotional blackmail." "No," I corrected him calmly. "This is a boundary. I'm willing to help, but not in a way that perpetuates the problem." "You have no right to dictate terms to your brother." "I have every right to set conditions on my own money," I countered. "Just as you had every right to say no when Justin asked for help. But you never did." My mother reached for my hand across the table. "Avery, please. Can't we just handle this as a family without all these legal documents?" "We tried that approach, Mom. For 15 years. It hasn't worked." Justin had gone quiet, staring at the documents spread across the table. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. "She's right." All three of us turned to look at him in surprise. "What did you say?" my father demanded. "She's right," Justin repeated, louder this time. "About all of it. The pattern, the enabling, my problem." The admission hung in the air, unexpected and powerful. "I'll sign the papers," he continued. "I'll go to the program. I'll do whatever it takes." My father looked stunned. "Justin, you don't have to agree to this. We'll find another way." "There is no other way, Dad," Justin replied, a new resolve in his voice. "I've been running from this for too long, and dragging all of you down with me." My mother began to cry in earnest now, but these weren't the manipulative tears I'd seen so often. These seemed genuine, born of both relief and grief. "I just want you to be okay," she told Justin. "I haven't been okay for a long time," he admitted. "Maybe this is what I need." My father remained standing, his face a storm of conflicting emotions. He looked from the spreadsheet to me, then to Justin, struggling to process this shift in family dynamics. "So that's it?" he finally asked me. "These conditions are non-negotiable?" "Yes," I confirmed. "This isn't about punishment or revenge. It's about breaking a destructive cycle." He picked up the spreadsheet again, staring at the total as if seeing it for the first time. The color had drained from his face as the reality of the situation finally seemed to sink in. $90,000, he murmured, almost to himself. All this time. It's not about the money, I said softly. It's about recognizing patterns and changing them. For the first time in my adult life, I saw something new in my father's eyes when he looked at me. Not disappointment or expectation, but a glimmer of respect. The confrontation had reached its climax, but unlike every confrontation before it, this one ended not with my capitulation but with a new understanding. The power dynamic had shifted, perhaps permanently. As Justin reached for the pen to sign the agreement, I felt a weight lifting, not just the immediate crisis, but the burden of unspoken resentment I'd carried for years. This time would truly be different. The weeks following our confrontation were challenging. After Justin signed the agreement, he enrolled in the gambling addiction program as promised. My parents, however, maintained a strained distance, unsure how to navigate our relationship under these new terms. 3 weeks after signing the agreement, my mother called. Her voice was hesitant, almost timid. How are you, Avery?
I'm fine, Mom.
How are you and Dad doing? We're adjusting. She paused. Your father is still processing everything. And Justin? He's attending the program, she said, a note of surprise in her voice. Every day. He hasn't missed a single session. That's good to hear. An awkward silence stretched between us, 15 years of unspoken tensions impossible to address in a single conversation. I've been thinking about what you said, my mother finally continued, about patterns. And I think you might be right. The admission clearly cost her. We haven't always been fair to you. It wasn't a full acknowledgement of everything that had happened, but it was more than I'd ever received before. Thank you for saying that, Mom. Your father might need more time, she added quickly. He's complicated. I know, I assured her. I'm not expecting overnight changes. We spoke for nearly an hour, tentatively rebuilding bridges without the usual manipulative undertones. When we hung up, I felt cautiously optimistic. A week later, Justin called me directly, something he rarely did unless he needed money. The counselor suggested I make amends, he began awkwardly. Part of the recovery process. Okay, I said neutrally, unsure where this was heading. I've been a terrible brother, he continued. I took advantage of you. Of Mom and Dad too, but especially you. You were always the responsible one, and I resented you for it. For making me look bad by comparison. Justin. No, please let me finish. I need to say this. He took a deep breath. I was jealous of you, your discipline, your success. It was easier to keep screwing up and blaming others than to try and fail on my own merits. His candor surprised me. The Justin I knew would never admit vulnerability. The program is helping, he added, as if reading my thoughts. It's not just about gambling. It's about all the ways I've been avoiding responsibility. I'm glad it's helping, I said, meaning it. I know I have no right to ask anything of you, but would you come to one of my family sessions next week? The counselor thinks it would be beneficial. The request was unexpected. I'll think about it, I promised. After we hung up, I called Zoe to process this new development. He actually apologized, she asked incredulously. Without asking for money immediately after? I know. I'm as shocked as you are. Do you believe him? Her skepticism was warranted given Justin's history. I'm not sure, I admitted. But this felt different, more genuine. Are you going to the family session? I sighed. Probably. I've come this far. Might as well see it through. The family counseling session was one of the most difficult experiences of my life. Sitting in a sterile room with my parents and Justin, facilitated by a calm-voiced therapist named Dr. Melissa Turner, we began the painful process of unpacking decades of dysfunctional patterns. The goal isn't to assign blame, Dr. Turner explained, but to understand how each family member's actions affect the others. My father initially sat with arms crossed, clearly uncomfortable with the entire process. But as Justin spoke openly about his addiction and the enabling behavior that had sustained it, something in my father's rigid posture softened. I always thought I was protecting you, he told Justin. I never considered I might be hurting you instead. When my turn came to speak, I described how it felt to be consistently deprioritized, to watch resources flow to Justin while I struggled alone. I don't resent the money itself, I explained. I resent what it represented, that my needs always came second. My mother wiped tears away as she listened. I never saw it that way, she admitted. We always thought you were so capable. You didn't need our help. Everyone needs help sometimes, Dr. Turner noted gently. And everyone needs to feel valued. By the end of the session, no miraculous healing had occurred. But something had shifted. We'd named dynamics that had previously operated in silence. We'd acknowledged hurts that had festered unaddressed. In the parking lot afterward, my father approached me alone while my mother and Justin spoke with Dr. Turner. That spreadsheet, he began awkwardly. The one you showed us. What about it? I've been thinking about it a lot. He cleared his throat. Your mother and I have discussed it. We want to make it right. Dad, I didn't create that to demand repayment. I know that, he said. But it matters. What we took from you matters. It was perhaps the most direct acknowledgement he'd ever given that my feelings were valid, my perspective legitimate. We can't repay it all at once, he continued. But we want to start. We've set up a monthly transfer. It's not much, but you don't have to do that. Yes, we do. His voice was firm. Not just for you, but for us. For this family. As the weeks turned into months, small changes accumulated. Justin attended his program faithfully and began working with a financial counselor. My parents started a modest repayment plan, transferring what they could afford each month to my account. Our conversations became less fraught, more honest. There were setbacks, of course. Old patterns don't disappear overnight. My father occasionally slipped into defensive bluster when stressed. My mother sometimes reverted to emotional manipulation when afraid. Justin had moments of entitlement and self-pity. But unlike before, these regressions were recognized and addressed. Slowly, painfully, we were learning a new way to be a family. 4 months after our confrontation, Justin secured a job at a small marketing firm. Not the high-flying position he would have pursued in the past, but steady work with reasonable expectations. He moved into a modest apartment, one actually within his budget. It's the first time I've supported myself completely, he told me over coffee one Saturday. It's terrifying. But also, I don't know, satisfying? That's called being an adult. I teased gently. He smiled ruefully. Better late than never, I guess. My relationship with my parents remained a work in progress. Years of established dynamics couldn't be undone in a few months. But there was progress. My father called to ask my advice about retirement planning. A small gesture that acknowledged my financial expertise. My mother sent a card on the anniversary of my apartment purchase, celebrating my achievement rather than diminishing it. As for me, the experience had transformed more than just my family relationships. Standing firm against the tide of family pressure had strengthened my sense of self. The boundaries I'd established weren't just financial, they were emotional, psychological, fundamental to who I was becoming. For the first time, I wasn't the responsible daughter cleaning up family messes. I was Avery Mitchell, financial consultant, apartment owner, woman with boundaries and self-respect. And that made all the difference. 6 months after that fateful Sunday when my parents showed up at my door, my life had transformed in ways I never imagined possible. The changes in my family dynamic were remarkable, though not without ongoing challenges. Justin had completed the intensive phase of his addiction recovery program and continued with weekly maintenance sessions. More surprisingly, he had maintained his job at the marketing firm, receiving a small raise after his 3-month review. It's the longest I've held a job since college, he admitted during one of our now regular Sunday phone calls. Turns out when you actually show up consistently and do the work, people notice. There was a new humility in his voice that still caught me off guard. The arrogant brother who had expected endless bailouts had been replaced by someone more grounded, more aware of his impact on others. He was faithfully making the modest monthly payments we'd agreed upon in our formal loan agreement. The payments were small, more symbolic than substantial, but the consistency mattered more than the amount. My parents had undergone their own evolution. My father, Robert, initially maintained a stiff distance after our confrontation. His pride had taken a significant blow, and he struggled to adapt to the new family dynamic where his authority wasn't absolute. But 3 months in, he called me out of the blue. "I've been seeing someone," he said awkwardly. "A therapist." I was so surprised I couldn't immediately respond. "Your mother thought it might help," he continued, filling the silence. "With understanding patterns." "That's great, Dad." I finally managed. "Really? I've been learning about something called differentiation," he explained. "It's about seeing your children as separate people with their own needs and identities." "How's that going?" I asked carefully. He sighed heavily. "It's hard. Harder than I expected to change how you think after 65 years. "I can imagine. But I'm trying, Avery." The vulnerability in his voice was new. "I want to do better." My mother, Karen, had made her own adjustments. She'd joined a support group for families of addicts, which helped her understand her role in enabling Justin's behavior. "I always thought love meant solving problems for my children," she told me during a rare mother-daughter lunch. "I never realized it could sometimes mean letting them solve their own problems." The modest repayment plan they'd established remained consistent. Each month, a small transfer appeared in my account, nowhere near the full amount documented in my spreadsheet, but a tangible acknowledgement of the imbalance that had existed for so long. My own journey during these 6 months had been equally profound. Shortly after the confrontation, I started working with a therapist named Diana Lawrence who specialized in family dynamics. "What you did took tremendous courage," Diana told me during our first session. "Standing up to established family patterns is one of the hardest things a person can do." Through weekly sessions, I began unpacking the complex emotions I'd suppressed for years. The resentment toward Justin, the hurt caused by my parents' favoritism, the guilt over establishing boundaries. "Guilt is common when we start setting healthy boundaries," Diana explained. "Especially with family. You've been conditioned to put others' needs before your own for so long that prioritizing yourself feels wrong." Gradually, I learned to recognize my own worth without external validation. I began to see that my value wasn't tied to being the responsible one, the fixer, the perpetual giver in relationship dynamics. This newfound self-awareness extended beyond my family relationships. At work, I became more assertive about my accomplishments during performance reviews. With friends, I practiced asking for support instead of always being the supporter. 3 months into my therapy journey, I met Ethan Rodriguez at a financial literacy workshop I was conducting for a local community college. He was a computer science professor with kind eyes and a thoughtful manner. After the workshop, he asked insightful questions about investment strategies for educators. Our professional conversation led to coffee, which led to dinner, which evolved into the healthiest relationship I'd ever experienced. Unlike previous partners who had been drawn to my caretaking tendencies, Ethan respected my boundaries and contributed equally to our relationship. My ex used to make me feel guilty for working late. I confessed during our 5th date. She called it choosing work over her. "That's not fair," Ethan replied. "Your career is part of who you are. Why would anyone want you to diminish that?" His response was refreshing, a recognition of my wholeness rather than an attempt to extract something from me. When I eventually shared my family history with him, his reaction solidified my trust. "You did something incredibly brave," he said. "Breaking generational patterns isn't easy." "Sometimes I still feel guilty," I admitted. "Of course you do. But feeling guilty doesn't mean you did something wrong." His understanding provided a stark contrast to past relationships where I'd been made to feel selfish for having boundaries. Throughout these months of transformation, Zoe remained my steadfast support. She celebrated my progress, offered reality checks when needed, and provided a safe space to process the ongoing family work. "I'm proud of you," she told me over dinner celebrating the 6-month anniversary of the confrontation. "You're not just setting boundaries, you're changing your entire family system." "I couldn't have done it without you," I replied sincerely. "Nonsense. You had the strength all along. You just needed permission to use it." My professional life flourished alongside these personal changes. The energy previously consumed by family drama was now channeled into my career. I took on leadership roles in client projects, mentored junior consultants, and even began developing a financial literacy program for young adults, something I'd dreamed of for years, but never found the bandwidth to pursue. 6 months after that life-changing Sunday, I hosted a small dinner party in my apartment, the same apartment I had refused to sell. Around my table sat Zoe, Ethan, and, remarkably, my parents and Justin. The conversation flowed more easily than I would have imagined possible half a year earlier. We didn't pretend the past hadn't happened, but neither did we dwell on it exclusively. We were learning a new way to be together, more honest, more respectful of boundaries, more authentic. As I looked around at these people sharing a meal in my home, I realized that the true value of standing my ground hadn't been keeping my apartment. It had been reclaiming my sense of self-worth and, in the process, offering my family the opportunity to grow as well. The healing wasn't complete, perhaps it never would be entirely. Old patterns occasionally resurfaced, requiring gentle but firm correction. Trust was being rebuilt slowly, one consistent action at a time. But the transformation was real. By refusing to participate in the dysfunctional family system any longer, I had created space for something healthier to emerge. My refusal to sell my apartment had become about much more than property. It was about breaking cycles of enablement and establishing that love doesn't mean endless sacrifice. The most powerful lesson I'd learned was that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to stop rescuing them. By setting boundaries with Justin, I had actually contributed to his recovery in a way that another financial bailout never could have. And by standing firm with my parents, I had given them the opportunity to see me, truly see me, perhaps for the first time. As we finished dessert that evening, my father cleared his throat, commanding attention in his characteristic way. "I'd like to say something," he announced. The table fell silent, a hint of the old tension returning. 6 months ago, I thought family meant always saying yes, always coming to the rescue. He paused, visibly working to find the right words. I was wrong. Avery taught me that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no. He raised his glass, to boundaries, and to my daughter, who had the courage to set them. As glasses clinked around the table, I felt a profound sense of peace. The journey wasn't over, but a crucial corner had been turned. By refusing to sacrifice my home, and by extension myself, I had helped create the possibility of a healthier home for all of us. Have you ever had to stand your ground with family members who expected too much from you? How did you handle that difficult conversation? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel for more stories about finding strength in difficult family situations. Thank you so much for listening, and remember that setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's an act of self-respect that can ultimately lead to healthier relationships for everyone involved.